My name is Clara Bennett. Back in my younger days, I worked as a nurse at the county hospital in a peaceful little town near Savannah, Georgia. For many years, I pulled double shifts and worked long hours trying to make ends meet while my heart ached for home, where my husband Robert and our daughter Lily waited. If you're settling in to hear this story now, take a moment to breathe, because what I'm fixing to tell you is something I never imagined would unfold in my own home, under my own roof, while I was out working those night shifts trying to provide a better life for my family. What I discovered completely turned my world upside down, and maybe it'll open your eyes too, especially if you're a mama who has to be away from your babies for work. Sometimes we think we know the people sleeping right next to us in bed, but there are dark secrets that only surface when we're least prepared for them. If this story's speaking to you, please hit that like button to bring a little sunshine to this grandma's heart. Subscribe to Grandma's Stories so you won't miss my next tale. And tell me down in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your neck of the woods right now. It makes this old heart so happy to know which corner of the country or the world is listening to me, and what time of day you're keeping me company. It practically started when I picked up on a change in Lily's behavior. She had always been such a bright child, the kind who would come running the second I walked through that door after my shift, the one who'd chatter on about everything that happened during her day, the one who giggled something fierce watching her cartoons on the television. My daughter was nothing but sunshine and energy. At least that's the way I held her in my memory. It was after a particularly brutal stretch of night shifts, nearly 3 weeks straight, that I realized something had shifted. When I finally got home, Lily barely peeked out from her room to greet me. When I went to check on her, she gave me a hug, but she seemed far away, with a look in those eyes I'd never witnessed before. I figured she was just worn out. Maybe she's just tired, I thought. Everything all right, sweetheart? I asked, smoothing down her hair like I always did. Yes, Mama, she answered softly, refusing to meet my gaze. Robert showed up in the doorway. She's been acting like that the past couple of days. Real quiet like. Must just be one of those phases kids go through. She's getting older. Come on now, supper's on the table. That evening, I kept my eyes on my daughter during the meal. She ate real slow, keeping her head down. I noticed she'd steal glances at her father sometimes, like she was scared of making a wrong move. And the strangest thing, she had these dark shadows under her eyes, like she hadn't been sleeping right in ages. How are things going at school, baby? I tried starting up a conversation. Fine, she mumbled without looking up. And what about your friends? Is your buddy Sarah still coming around to play? That's when I caught Robert staring hard at Lily, who swallowed nervously before responding. After supper, I went to tuck her into bed. When we were alone, I sat on the edge of that bed and asked her once more if everything was okay. That's when she grabbed hold of my hand and said something that sent a chill straight through my bones. Mama, don't tell Daddy I talked to you. Talked about what, sweetheart? I asked, my heart starting to race. But before she could get another word out, Robert appeared in that doorway. Time for lights out, Lily. School comes early tomorrow. The way my daughter flinched when she saw her father, that wasn't natural. I kissed her forehead and left that room, but my mind was already spinning 1,000 miles a minute. I couldn't get a wink of sleep that night. Something was terribly wrong. I could feel it in my bones. And I made up my mind to pay closer attention over the next few days before heading back to those night shifts. In the days that came after, I watched everything more carefully. I noticed Lily wasn't the chatty girl I knew. At school, her teacher mentioned she'd become quieter, less eager to join in activities. At home, she spent most of her time shut away in her room, drawing or reading. Whenever I asked if things were all right, she always said yes. But those eyes were telling a whole different story. One afternoon, while Robert was out running errands at the hardware store, I sat down with her in the living room and tried getting her to open up. At first she pushed back, but little by little she started letting some things slip out. "Baby girl, you can tell me anything. You know Mama's always gonna protect you." She went quiet for a spell, wringing her little hands together. Then in a voice barely louder than a whisper she said, "I don't like it when you work nights, Mama." "Why, honey? Doesn't Daddy take good care of you?" "No." She didn't say nothing more, just dropped her head lower. I pushed a bit further. "Lily, did something happen when Mama was at work?" That's when she started crying softly. I pulled her close for a hug and felt her small body shaking. Between those sobs she whispered, "Mama, please don't tell Daddy I cried." That broke something inside me. What kind of fear was this? Why would my daughter be so guarded around her own father? "Lily, did Daddy do something to you? Can you tell me, baby?" Right then we heard the key turning in that front door lock. Lily immediately pulled away from me, wiped her tears with her hands, and completely changed her whole demeanor. It was like watching her put on a mask. "I'm back," Robert announced, walking in with bags from the store. Seeing us in the living room, he smiled. But I sensed something unsettling about that smile. "What are you two ladies up to?" "Just having a little talk," I replied, trying to sound natural. "Right, sweetie." Lily nodded without saying a single word and asked to go to the bathroom. When she came back, her eyes were still red from crying, but she was trying her best to hide it. During supper that night, I watched how my daughter and my husband interacted. The way she avoided his gaze, how she measured every single word before speaking, how her small shoulders seemed to be carrying some invisible weight. Robert, on the other hand, acted perfectly normal, asking about school, commenting on the weather just like any father would. Later, as we were getting ready for bed, I questioned Robert about Lily's behavior. "Don't you think she's different? Quieter? More withdrawn?" He shrugged as he changed into his pajamas. "It's just a phase, Clara. Kids go through this sort of thing. One day they're happy as can be. The next they're more introverted. It's perfectly normal." But those dark circles under her eyes. "Looks like she hasn't been sleeping worth a darn. She's been having some bad dreams," he replied, not looking directly at me. "Kids do that." "And why didn't you mention this to me?" "Because I didn't want you worrying while you were working those night shifts. You've got enough on your mind as it is, right?" The explanation seemed reasonable enough, but something inside me stayed unsettled. That night, I woke up several times thinking about my daughter, how different she'd become, the fear in her eyes. And it was during one of those times that I realized Robert wasn't in bed. I slowly got myself up and stepped out of the room. The house was silent except for that small hallway light glowing. That's when I saw it. The door to Lily's room was cracked open just a bit, and Robert was inside. I froze in that hallway, trying not to make a sound, trying to understand what in the world was happening. After about 30 minutes or so, he left the room quietly, closing that door behind him. "What were you doing in her room at this hour?" I asked, startling him. "Clara, you scared me half to death," he exclaimed, clutching his chest. "I went to check if she was sleeping all right. You know, because of those nightmares. 30 minutes to check if she's sleeping okay." She woke up. She was agitated. I stayed there calming her down. "Why? What kind of question is that?" "Sorry," I replied, trying not to show my suspicion. "I was just worried." We went back to bed, but I couldn't sleep anymore. The next morning, after Robert took Lily to school, I went straight to her room. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew I needed to find some clue about what was going on. That's when I saw an old doll I had given her years back lying beneath the bed. The doll that Lily loved more than anything was now torn in a few places with the stuffing coming out. That puzzled me something fierce. My daughter had always taken such good care of her toys. When I picked it up, I noticed something that disturbed me even more. There were dark stains on the fabric that looked like dried tears. The next night I stayed awake on purpose. And once again, around 11 o'clock, Robert quietly slipped out of our bed and went to Lily's room. This time I waited a few minutes and crept up to that door, trying to hear what was going on inside. That's when I heard the muffled sound of crying. My daughter was sobbing quietly, like she was terrified of making any noise. "Discipline," I heard Robert say in a low, firm tone. "It's for your own good." What was happening behind that door? What kind of discipline made my daughter cry in the middle of the night? It was right then and there that I made a decision that would change our lives forever. The next morning, using the excuse that I needed to pick up some things from the pharmacy, I left the house early. My head was buzzing with thoughts and doubts. Was I overreacting? Was it really just a phase like Robert claimed? But that muffled crying, that fear in my daughter's eyes, I couldn't shake it loose. I drove downtown and walked into an electronics shop. A young man helped me, and I explained that I needed a small, discreet camera that was easy to set up, and that I could check from my cell phone. "Is this for home security, ma'am?" the clerk asked. "Yes," I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. "For my daughter's security." I left that store with a tiny camera that could be easily hidden. The clerk explained how to install it and how to access it through an app on my phone. I never thought I'd reach the point of installing a hidden camera in my own house to watch my own husband, but my daughter's well-being was more important than anything else in this world. When I got back home, Robert was in the kitchen fixing lunch. Lily was at school. It was the perfect time. "Did you get what you needed?" he asked, stirring something on the stove. "Yeah, got everything I needed," I lied, slipping the bag with the camera into my purse. "I'm going to freshen up a bit." I went into Lily's room and looked around for the best place to install that camera. I needed an angle that would capture the whole room but wouldn't be easy to spot. Finally, I decided to place it on the bookshelf between some stuffed animals. It was small enough to go unnoticed but positioned just right to capture everything that happened in that room. With trembling hands, I quickly set up the camera and tested it on my phone. It worked perfectly. I felt a mixture of relief and guilt. Relief that I might finally discover what was happening, and guilt for invading the privacy of my own home. But something told me I was doing the right thing. That night during supper, I tried to act normal, but my stomach was churning. Lily remained quiet, answering only when spoken to directly, always with that apprehensive glance toward her father. Robert, for his part, seemed perfectly normal, talking about work, the neighbors, and plans for the weekend. "I have to go back to night shifts the day after tomorrow," I commented, watching their reactions. 3 nights in a row down at the hospital. I saw Lily's shoulders slump slightly and a barely noticeable flicker in Robert's eyes. How many nights this time? He asked with a calmness that now seemed suspicious. At least 3, maybe 4 if they need me. Lily dropped her head further, picking at her food with her fork. Robert smiled faintly. We'll miss you, won't we, Lily? She nodded without saying anything. After supper, I went to put her to bed. When we were alone, she tightly grabbed my hand. Mama, do you really have to work nights? The desperation in her voice broke my heart. Yes, baby. I need to work, but look, it'll go by real fast and I'll be back before you know it. Okay? She didn't answer. She just hugged me tightly like she never wanted to let go. In that moment, I was certain I had done the right thing by installing that camera. The next day, I spent as much time as possible with Lily. I took her out for ice cream after school. We played in the yard. We watched her favorite show on TV. I wanted her to know I was there for her, that she could trust me. That night, before she fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried one more time to get her to talk. Lily, you know you can tell me anything, right? Even if someone tells you not to. She quickly looked toward the door like she was checking if we were really alone. I know, Mama, she whispered. Is there something happening that you want to tell me? Something that makes you sad or scared? Her eyes welled up with tears, but she held them back. I can't, Mama. Why not, sweetheart? Why? She started to speak, but her voice failed. Just then we heard footsteps in the hall. It was Robert approaching. It's bedtime for you too, he said, standing in the doorway. You need your rest for your shift tomorrow, Clara. I gave Lily one last hug and whispered in her ear, I love you, baby girl. I will always protect you. When I left the room, Robert followed me back to our bedroom. We laid down and after a while I pretended to be asleep. About an hour later, when he thought I was deeply sleeping, he quietly got up and left the room. I quickly reached for my cell phone and opened the camera app. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would beat right out of my chest. On the screen, I saw Robert entering Lily's room. He gently closed the door behind him. Lily was lying down but awake, as if she was already expecting this nightly visit. I saw her shrink under the covers, pulling that blanket up to her chin. Daddy, please, she whispered. I was good today. You know that doesn't matter, right? Robert replied in a voice I'd never heard from him before. Cold, distant. This is for your education. That's when I saw something that froze my blood. Robert pulled a roll of masking tape from the pocket of his robe. In that moment, I felt my entire body go cold. On that small phone screen, I watched my husband, my daughter's father, move toward the bed with tape in his hand. Lily shrank even further, her little eyes wide with terror. Please, Daddy, she pleaded softly. I promise I'll be better. Sure. He hushed, putting a finger to his lips. The neighbors can't hear, remember? And neither can Mama. With a quick motion, he tore off a piece of tape and without any hesitation stuck it over my daughter's mouth. My Lily, my 8-year-old baby girl, having her voice silenced in such a cruel way. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped that phone. That's better, Robert said in a low tone. Now we won't bother anyone with crying, right? Then he pulled a hard-soled slipper out of his other robe pocket. Lily, still with her mouth covered, tried to plead with her eyes. Silent tears began to roll down her little face. "This is for your own good," he continued with that icy voice I wouldn't have recognized as belonging to the man I married. "One day you'll thank me for teaching you discipline." What happened next was one of the hardest things I've ever had to witness in my entire life. Robert started hitting my daughter with that slipper. These weren't light taps or disciplinary spanks like some parents give. They were hard, repeated blows, all while he whispered for her to learn her lesson. Lily couldn't scream because of the tape, but her body convulsed with every hit. I watched her small shoulders shaking with silent sobs, tears soaking her pillow. And worst of all, I saw a mixture of pain and resignation in her eyes, as if this was something she knew all too well. I wanted to rush out of my room, burst into hers and make it stop immediately. But a part of me knew I needed concrete proof of what was happening. I needed to document that cruelty to ensure Lily would never go through this again. So with a shattered heart, I continued to record. "This is for talking too much with your mother today," I heard Robert say between the blows. "You know you can't tell her our business." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he stopped. Lily was huddled in the bed, her little body trembling with mute sobs. "Remember our deal?" Robert said, leaning over her. "If you tell your mother anything, I'll know, and it will be much worse." Then he ripped the tape off her mouth, making her wince in pain. "Now dry your face and go to sleep. And I don't want to hear a sound, understand?" Lily nodded, terrified. Robert smoothed the blanket over her as if nothing had happened, as if that gesture could erase the violence from moments before. "Good night, sweetheart," he said, then left the room, gently closing the door. In the darkness of my room, with the phone still in my hand and the images of what I had just witnessed burning into my memory, I cried silently. How hadn't I seen it before? How could I have left my daughter vulnerable for so long? The night shifts, the long hours away. How long had this been going on? Minutes later, Robert returned to our bed. I pretended to sleep, but every fiber of my being wanted to confront him, to scream, to ask how he was capable of doing that to our child. But I knew I needed to be strategic. Lily was in danger, and I needed to act carefully to protect her properly. I spent the whole night awake, checking the camera periodically. I watched as Lily, after her father left, cried silently, clutching that broken doll. I watched as she finally fell asleep, exhausted. And I promised myself that I would do everything I could to get my daughter out of that situation. The next morning, I got up before Robert and made breakfast for Lily. When she appeared in the kitchen with those same deep dark circles and a defeated expression, my heart sank. I tried to act normally, but all I could think about were the images from the night before. "Did you sleep well, sweetheart?" I asked, trying not to show what I was feeling. "Yes, Mama," she replied automatically, not looking me in the eye. "Lily," I called, crouching down to her level. "Look at me." She slowly raised her eyes, and I could see all the fear and pain contained there. "I love you so very much," I said, holding her small hands. "And I'm going to do everything to protect you. Do you believe me?" For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by fear when we heard Robert approaching. "Good morning," he said, entering the kitchen as if nothing had happened. "Already having breakfast? That's wonderful." I watched as he poured coffee and spread butter on toast, acting like the loving father I always thought he was, the same person who hours earlier had tortured our daughter in the silence of the night. "What time are you leaving for your shift today?" he asked casually. "After lunch," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to spend the morning with Lily." "Very good," he smiled. "Don't worry about a thing. We'll be fine, won't we, Lily?" My daughter just nodded without saying anything. After breakfast, while Robert took Lily to school, I rushed to make a copy of the video from the night before. I needed to ensure that evidence was safe. I transferred the files to a flash drive and also uploaded them to cloud storage. I couldn't risk losing that terrible but crucial evidence. When I left for my shift that afternoon, it was far from a normal workday. Every minute that took me away from home was agony, knowing my daughter would be alone with her abuser. But now I had a plan, and the camera would remain vigilant, recording everything so I could act with the full force of the law. That night, during my break at the hospital, I parked myself in the break room and with a heavy heart accessed the camera app. Just as I suspected, the scene from the night before was repeating itself. Robert entered the room, closed the door, and the ritual of abuse began again. "Cry quietly," I heard him say as he applied the tape to my daughter's mouth. "Your mother can never know this." That's when I made a decision that would change our lives forever. I couldn't wait until my shift ended. My daughter would not spend another night in that house. With trembling hands and tears in my eyes, I called my sister Margaret. Margaret Walsh had always been a solid woman, always loved Lily dearly, and I trusted her with my life. "Clara, everything okay? You don't usually call during your shift," she answered, sounding concerned. "Margaret, I need your help," I said, trying to control my voice. "It's an emergency. It's about Lily." "What happened? Is she sick?" "No, it's worse. I need you to go to my house right now and get Lily out of there. Make up any excuse. Say you need to take her to your place for some reason. Anything. Just get my baby away from Robert, please." "Clara, you're scaring me. What is going on?" "Margaret, I don't have time to explain everything right now. I'm at the hospital. Can I trust you?" There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then in a serious voice she replied, "Yes, you can trust me. I'll go get Lily right now." "Thank you," I sighed, feeling a slight sense of relief. "When you have her safe, call me, and please don't tell Robert anything." I hung up and stared at my phone, praying that Margaret could get my daughter out of that house as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, I told my supervisor I had a family emergency and left work early. I didn't care about the consequences, the job, nothing. I just wanted to get home and protect my daughter. An hour and a half later, my phone rang. It was Margaret. "Clara, I have Lily here at my house. I told Robert the first needed her help baking cookies for the church bake sale tomorrow. He was a little suspicious, but he let her come. We're home now with my kids." I closed my eyes for a moment, silently giving thanks. "How is she?" "Quiet, kind of scared. She's asked for you several times." "Can I talk to her?" "Sure. Hold on a minute." I heard some shuffling and then my daughter's voice. "Mama." "Hey, baby girl," I said, feeling the emotion swell up inside me. "Are you okay there with Aunt Margaret?" "I'm okay," she replied softly. "Mama, are you coming to get me?" "I am, sweetheart. I'm on my way home right now. I'll get there as fast as I can, okay? In the meantime, you stay there with your aunt. She's going to take care of you." "Okay," she said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. Mama, thank you. That simple thank you broke my heart. My daughter was thanking me for getting her out of an abusive situation, as if she didn't deserve to be protected, as if being treated with dignity was some kind of favor. I love you so much, Lily. We'll be together real soon. After speaking with my daughter, Margaret got back on the phone. Clara, are you going to tell me what's going on? Lily is terrified of going home. What did Robert do? Margaret, I know this is hard to believe, but Robert has been physically abusing Lily. I have video proof. There was a long silence. This can't be true. Robert wouldn't do that. I didn't want to believe it either, I replied, my voice breaking. But I saw it with my own eyes. I installed a camera in her room because I noticed something was wrong. He waits for me to fall asleep or when I'm working nights and goes into her room in the middle of the night, tapes her mouth shut so she won't make noise and hits her. These aren't disciplinary spanks, Margaret. It's pure violence. Oh my lord, she whispered, clearly shaken. I have the videos. I'll show you when I get there. For now, I just need to know my baby is safe. She's safe here with me and the kids. You can rest easy. Robert has already called twice asking when I'm bringing her back. What did you tell him? That I needed her help with the cookies and that we were going to stop by the ice cream shop afterward. I said I'd bring her back later. I don't know if he believed me, but it's the best I could come up with. Thank you, Margaret. Seriously. I should arrive home within the hour. I'll come straight to your house. I won't even stop by my place first. We'll be waiting. And Clara, I don't even know what to say. I never imagined Robert was capable of something like that. Me neither, I replied, feeling a knot in my throat. Me neither. I continued driving, my hands gripping that steering wheel without stopping. Every moment I thought about my daughter, about the scars those months or maybe years of abuse would leave on her. How could a father do that to his own child? How had I not noticed it sooner? As I drove, I remembered the small signs I had ignored. The dark circles, the withdrawn behavior, the fear in her eyes, Robert's excuses about discipline and education. I remembered all the times Lily tried to tell me something but stopped when Robert walked into the room. All the time she begged me not to work nights, to stay home. When I finally arrived at Margaret's house, it was past 9 in the evening. I went straight inside. Margaret answered the door with a serious expression. She's in the guest room with the kids. She finally relaxed a bit watching a movie with them. Can I see her? Margaret led me to the guest room where Lily was sitting with her cousins, looking more at ease than I'd seen her in ages. When she saw me, she jumped up and ran into my arms, sobbing. I hugged her tightly, promising myself that I would never let anyone hurt my daughter again. It's all right now, baby, I whispered in her ear. Mama's here. No one will hurt you anymore. She clung to me like her life depended on it, and in a way it really did. I sat on the sofa with Lily in my lap, her face buried in my chest, her small hands clutching my shirt like she feared I might disappear at any moment. Margaret gave us space, going into the kitchen to make some tea. I just sat there holding my daughter, feeling her trembling body gradually calm down. Baby girl, I called softly when I felt she was more relaxed. I need to talk to you about something really important. She lifted her face, her eyes still red from crying. There was so much fear there, so much pain for a child so small. You don't have to be scared anymore, I continued, holding her little hands in mine. I know what was happening when I wasn't home. I know what Daddy was doing to you at night." Her body instantly tensed, and I saw the panic growing in her eyes. "Mama, he'll be so mad if he knows I said something." "You didn't say anything, sweetheart. I found out on my own," I explained, trying to calm her. "I installed a camera in your room before my last shift. I saw everything that happened." Lily looked at me, confused, trying to process what I was saying. You saw." "I saw, baby. I saw everything he was doing to you. The tape on your mouth, the hitting." She lowered her head as if she were ashamed. "I'm sorry, Mama." Those 2 words broke me. My daughter apologizing for being a victim of abuse. I held her face in my hands, making her look at me. "Lily, listen closely to what Mama's going to say. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing. What Daddy did to you is wrong. Very wrong. No adult, not even a parent, is allowed to hurt a child like that. Do you understand that?" She nodded slowly, but I saw the doubt still in her eyes. Years of manipulation and fear wouldn't be erased with a few words. "How long has this been going on, sweetheart?" She bit her lip, hesitating. Since you started working more night shifts. He said it was to teach me to be a good girl while you were away. He said if I told anyone, nobody would believe me, that he would say I was lying for attention." I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling a physical pain, thinking that this had been going on for so long, practically an entire year, and I hadn't realized it. All those shifts, all those nights I left my daughter alone with her abuser. And when I was home, did he do this too? She shook her head. "Not as much. Only when you were asleep. He would wait until you were deeply asleep and come into my room, but it was quicker because he was afraid you'd wake up and hear something." I remembered all the times I woke up and found him returning to bed, claiming he'd gone to the bathroom or gotten water. All the mornings I found Lily looking defeated, with dark circles and no energy. How could I have been so blind? "When he hit you, why did he say he was doing it?" Lily shrugged. "Sometimes it was because I talked to you too much, or because I left my school bag in the wrong place, or because I didn't finish all my dinner." She paused, swallowing. "But most of the time he said he didn't need a reason, that it was so I could learn to be strong." A tear escaped my eye, and I quickly wiped it away. I needed to be strong for her now. "Lily, look at me," I asked, waiting for her eyes to meet mine. "As of today, this is over. You will never go through this again. Never. I promise you. And Daddy, he's going to be really mad when he knows you know. Don't you worry about him. You won't be alone with him ever again." Just then, Margaret returned to the living room, bringing a tray with hot cocoa and cookies. "Look, Lily," Margaret said, forcing a smile. "I made hot cocoa for you." Lily looked at the tray, then at me as if asking for permission. "Go ahead, sweetheart. You must be hungry." She climbed off my lap and went to sit at the table where Margaret helped her pour the cocoa into a colorful mug. While she ate, Margaret gestured for me to follow her out to the back porch. "So, Clara, what are you going to do now?" "I'm going to the police station," I said, determined. "I'm going to show the videos, file a report, and ask for a restraining order for Lily. I'm going to do everything necessary to keep my daughter safe. You know this is going to destroy your marriage, right? That Robert could go to jail." I looked at her seriously. "Margaret, I know he's my husband, but what he did, what he's been doing for months, that already destroyed our family. A father who tortures his own child doesn't deserve that title. And yes, if the justice system decides he should go to jail, so be it. She nodded slowly. You're right. It's just hard to accept that someone you trusted is capable of something like that. But Lily comes first. She's just a kid. Exactly, I agreed. And I failed her once. I won't fail her again. What can I do to help? You're already helping Margaret by giving us shelter, by protecting my baby when I couldn't. I just need you to stay with Lily while I go to the police station. I don't want her to go through this right now. Of course, no problem. She can stay here as long as necessary. We went back inside and found Lily more cheerful, talking quietly with Margaret's kids while they served her more cookies. It was the first time in a long time that I'd seen her like this, almost relaxed, almost like the girl she should be. Baby girl, I called, kneeling beside her. Mama needs to go out for a few hours to take care of some important things. You'll stay here with Aunt Margaret, okay? The panic immediately returned to her eyes. You'll come back, right, Mama? Promise. Of course I'm coming back, sweetheart. Promise. I'm just going to sort some things out to make sure you're safe. Daddy's going to come and get me, isn't he? No, I replied firmly. He's not coming here. Are you sure? I'm positive. She nodded but still looked insecure. Margaret, sensing her fear, suggested, Lily, how about we watch that princess movie you love so much while your mama takes care of things? The suggestion seemed to cheer her up a little. I gave her one last hug before leaving, promising her again that I'd be back soon. On the way to the police station, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was Robert. I ignored the first few calls, but on the fifth try I decided to answer. I needed to buy time. Hello, I answered curtly. Clara, he exclaimed, sounding relieved. Thank God. I've been trying to call you for hours. Margaret took Lily last night and still hasn't brought her back. She won't answer my calls. I'm worried. The hypocrisy of those words infuriated me. Him worried about the daughter he methodically abused. She's fine, I replied, trying to control the rage in my voice. She's still with Margaret. Why didn't you tell me you were leaving work early? And why haven't you come home? Where are you? I'm taking care of some business, I evaded. I'll be home later. Clara, what is going on? You're acting strange. We'll talk when I get there, I replied and hung up before he could ask any more questions. At the police station, I was met by a detective who listened to my account with attention and seriousness. When I showed the videos, she shook her head, visibly disturbed. Mrs. Bennett, this is a serious case of domestic violence against a minor, she explained. We are going to take all the necessary measures. First, we will file a detailed report and request an emergency protective order to keep your husband away from the child. And what about custody of my daughter? You can immediately file for temporary custody while the process moves forward. With this evidence, it is very likely the judge will grant the petition. I spent the next few hours giving a statement, filling out forms, and sending the videos to the police system. The detective called the Department of Children and Family Services, which sent a representative to monitor the case. Everything seemed to be happening in slow motion and fast forward at the same time. When I finally left the police station, it was late afternoon. I had a police report and a protocol for the protective order petition in hand. The detective assured me that an officer would go to my house that very day to notify Robert about the order, which prohibited him from approaching Lily or contacting her in any way. As I drove back to Margaret's house, I received a call from an unknown number. It was the court officer informing me that he had just served Robert with the protective order notification. "He didn't react well," he commented. He became agitated, saying it was all lies, that you were making things up to take his daughter away. "That was to be expected," I replied, tired. "Do you have a safe place to stay with the minor? Because he won't be able to remain in the same residence as her." "Yes, we're at my sister's house for now. I plan to find a place of my own in the coming days." "Excellent. Any problems, contact the station immediately." When I arrived at Margaret's house, I found Lily calmer, watching TV with the kids. When she saw me, she ran to hug me. "You came back," she exclaimed, relieved. "I promised you, didn't I?" I smiled, picking her up. "And Mama always keeps her promises." Margaret called me into the kitchen while her husband stayed with Lily in the living room. "Robert came here," she said quietly. I felt my blood run cold. "What? When?" "About an hour ago. He was furious, saying you'd made up lies about him, that you wanted to keep him away from his daughter. He said he had just received a protective order and knew we were here. He tried to come in to see Lily." "Tried?" "He tried, but I didn't let him. I told him he was very upset and it would be better to come back when he was calmer. He threatened to call the police, but I reminded him the protective order was against him, not us. He eventually left, but I'm sure he'll be back. We're going to have to leave here," I concluded, running a hand through my hair. "I don't want to involve you folks more than I already have. Where will you go?" "I'll rent a hotel room for now until I find an apartment." "Don't be foolish, Clara." Margaret put her hand on my shoulder. "You can stay here for as long as you need. My house is big. We have the guest room. Lily is already feeling comfortable here. I don't want to cause trouble for you and your family. She's my niece. This is very serious. You're staying here until you get settled again." End of story. I felt a wave of gratitude for that woman who chose to side with what was right, with justice and the protection of an innocent child. That night, when I tucked Lily into the guest room, she asked me to stay until she fell asleep. I lay down beside her, and we remained in silence for a few minutes. "Mama," she called quietly, "Daddy won't hurt me anymore, right?" "No, sweetheart. Never again," I promised, holding her little hand. "Mama's going to protect you. Always." "He got really mad because you found out." "I think so, but that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you're safe now." She was silent for a few more moments. Then she whispered, "You know, Mama, I prayed every night for you to find out. I was so scared to tell you." I felt tears return to my eyes. "I'm so sorry I didn't find out sooner, baby. I'm so sorry." "It wasn't your fault, Mama," she said with wisdom beyond her years. "Daddy said it was our secret, that everyone would think I was lying, that even you would think I was making things up. I would never think that, Lily. Never. You can always tell me everything. I will always believe you." She smiled faintly, the first genuine smile I'd seen on her face in a long time. Soon after, she fell asleep holding my hand. I stayed there watching my daughter sleep in peace, perhaps for the first time in many weeks. And I swore I would do everything to rebuild our lives and give her back the childhood she deserved. The next day, I received a call from my lawyer. who I had hired to handle the custody case. He had news. "Mrs. Bennett, the judge has granted your petition for temporary custody. You have exclusive custody of Lily until the case is adjudicated. Your husband will be entitled to supervised visitation if you agree, but only in a neutral location and with an appointed professional from the court." I felt an enormous weight lift from my shoulders. It was only the beginning of a long legal battle. I knew that, but it was a start, an important step in ensuring my daughter's safety. When I hung up the phone, I saw Lily watching me from the kitchen doorway, her eyes full of hope and fear at the same time. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" I opened my arms and she ran to me. I hugged her with all the strength of my love, knowing we had a long road ahead but determined to make everything work out. "Yes, baby. I promise you we are going to be okay." The weeks that followed were weeks of adjustment and healing. We rented a small apartment close to Margaret's house, which continued to be our safe haven. I had to make difficult decisions about my job. The night shifts were incompatible with the new reality of being a single mother. I spoke with my supervisor and managed to arrange a deal. I started working only day shifts, no more nights. Lily began therapy 3 times a week. Dr. Chan, the psychologist, specialized in childhood trauma and had a lot of experience with child victims of domestic violence. At first, my daughter was reluctant to talk, but slowly she began to open up, expressing her fears and pain in ways her small mind could process. One afternoon, after a particularly intense session, Dr. Chun asked to speak with me alone. "Mrs. Bennett, Lily is making progress, but the trauma is deep," she explained seriously. She lived for approximately a year under constant terror, always dreading the moment her father would enter the room to hurt her. "Will she overcome this someday?" I asked, anxious. "Children are surprisingly resilient when they have adequate support," she smiled faintly. "The fact that you acted quickly when you discovered the abuse was crucial. Many children are victimized for years because the adults around them don't believe them or choose not to see." "I should have noticed it sooner," I said, feeling the weight of guilt I still carried. "Abusers are very skilled at hiding their actions, Mrs. Bennett. And from what Lily told me, her father constantly threatened her to ensure her silence. He chose moments when you weren't around or when he believed you wouldn't notice. This is typical of abusers." I thought of all the shifts, all the nights I spent away from home, leaving my daughter vulnerable. "I'm working only day shifts now. No more nights." "That's an important decision," she nodded. "The constant presence of a protective adult is fundamental to Lily's recovery. She needs to feel safe, to know she can trust you to be there." "I'll always be there," I promised. And regarding supervised visits, the judge granted Robert that right, and I don't know how Lily will react to seeing her father. Dr. Chan sighed. "That's a delicate matter. Legally, he has that right unless it's proven that the visits would be detrimental to Lily's mental health. Based on what I've seen, I can prepare a report for the court recommending that the visits be temporarily suspended, at least until Lily is more emotionally stable." "That would help a lot," I replied, relieved. "She still wakes up screaming some nights, calling out, afraid that he'll come to hurt her. Nightmares are common in trauma cases. They will decrease with time and therapy." She paused. "Mrs. Bennett, there's one more thing we need to discuss. Lily mentioned that her father used religious concepts to justify the punishments. He said it was biblical discipline, that he was doing it for her own good. I felt my stomach churn. He was never particularly religious with me. I never imagined he would use that as an excuse for. I couldn't even finish the sentence. Unfortunately, this is more common than one might imagine. Some people twist religious concepts to justify violence against children. This also explains part of the moral confusion Lily feels. She was led to believe she deserved the suffering, that it was for her benefit. I left that session with a heavy heart, but also with more clarity on how to help my daughter. On the way home, we stopped at the ice cream parlor, a small ritual we had established after therapy sessions. It was our way of turning a potentially difficult day into one that ended on a positive note. "How was the conversation with Dr. Chun today, sweetheart?" I asked as she licked her strawberry ice cream. "It was good," she replied more openly than she usually was. "And does it work?" She shrugged. "Sometimes when it's not a really big scare." "And when it is a really big scare, what do you do?" "I think about you, Mama," she said simply. "I think that now you're going to protect me." Those simple words made my eyes well up. I put my arm around her shoulders and pulled her close. "Always, sweetheart. Always." That night, while Lily slept, Margaret came over for a visit. She seemed tense, worried. "What's wrong?" I asked, offering her some coffee. "Robert is trying to build a case against you," she said directly. "He went to his mother's house today, and I heard about it through the family grapevine. He said he's going to prove you're an absent mother, that you always left Lily's upbringing in his hands while you worked nights, and that you're now using false accusations to take his daughter away." "False accusations?" I repeated, incredulous. "I have videos, Margaret. Videos of him torturing our daughter." I know," she tried to calm me. "I'm just telling you what he's planning. He says he's going to find witnesses, neighbors, relatives, people from Lily's school who will say he was always a good, dedicated, loving father. And what those people say matters more than the concrete evidence of what he was doing when no one was looking." I argued, frustrated. "Clara, you know how complicated the justice system can be, especially when it comes to custody disputes." Margaret sighed. "He's leveraging the fact that you worked a lot of night shifts." I ran a tired hand over my face. "That's why I already changed my work schedule. I'm only doing day shifts now." "That's good," Margaret nodded. "It will help show the judge you are committed to Lily's well-being. But you have to prepare for a difficult battle." "I'm prepared to face whatever is necessary for my daughter." In the days that followed, I received notification that Robert had filed a petition to revoke the protective order and the temporary custody. As Margaret had warned me, he was building a case based on my supposed absence as a mother due to work. Following my lawyer's advice, I began to meticulously document our new routine. I took Lily to school every morning and picked her up every afternoon. I attended all her therapy sessions. I participated in school meetings. We went on outings together on weekends. I took photos, saved receipts, and requested statements from the school and the psychologist. At home, Lily continued to have occasional nightmares, but they were becoming less frequent. Little by little, she was returning to the cheerful girl I remembered, although she still had moments of sudden fear or deep sadness. One night, while helping her with her homework, she asked me a question that took me by surprise. "Mama, Daddy didn't love me, did he?" I put down the pencil I was holding and turned completely toward her. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" She shrugged, but I could see she was fighting back tears. "Because he hurt me so badly." "You only hurt people you don't love, right?" How do you explain something so complex to an 8-year-old? How do you make her understand that the problem wasn't her? It never was her. "Lily, what Daddy did to you has nothing to do with whether you're a good or bad girl or whether he loved you or not. There are adults who are sick in here." I pointed to my head. "And in here." I pointed to my heart. "They do very bad things because they don't know how to handle their own feelings and problems." "So Daddy is sick?" she asked, trying to understand. "In a way, yes. It's not a sickness like the flu or a stomach ache. It's a sickness that makes a person hurt others, especially those who can't defend themselves. And that is very, very wrong." She was silent for a moment, processing what I had told her. "Will he ever get better?" That was the hardest question. "I don't know, baby. Some people manage to realize they are sick and seek help to get better. Others don't. But the most important thing is that you are safe now. And I'm going to do everything I can to keep you that way." "And if the judge says I have to go back and live with him?" she asked with evident fear in her voice. "That's not going to happen," I assured her, pulling her into a hug. "We have proof of what he did. And your well-being is what matters most to the judge. Plus, Dr. Chun is helping to explain to the court that you need time to feel safe again." That conversation continued to resonate in my mind for days. My daughter, so small, trying to understand why her own father had subjected her to such cruelty. How does a child process something like that? How do they overcome it? 2 weeks later, we received the news. Robert's petition to revoke the protective order had been denied. Dr. Chen's report, along with the videos and Lily's own testimony, given in a protected environment with psychological support, were decisive. The judge not only maintained the protective order, but also temporarily suspended the right to supervised visits, determining that Robert would have to undergo psychological evaluation and mandatory treatment before any contact with his daughter could be reestablished. It was a significant victory, but I knew the battle wasn't over yet. Robert wouldn't give up easily, and we still had to face the final hearing to determine permanent custody. That night, as Lily slept peacefully for the first time in many weeks, I sat on the balcony of our small apartment and reflected on everything we had been through. The terrible discovery, the desperate rescue, the nights of nightmares, the therapy sessions, the court battles. It had been the most difficult period of our lives, but also the start of our healing. I looked up at the stars, thinking about how our future now seemed a little clearer, a little more hopeful. Lily was starting to smile again, to play, to trust. I had found a new balance between work and family, prioritizing what really mattered. And although the road was still long, for the first time in a long time, I truly believed we would be okay. My phone vibrated with a message. It was Margaret sending a photo she had taken that day during a cookout at her house. Lily was smiling as she held a sparkler, her eyes shining with genuine joy I hadn't seen in so long. Below the photo was Margaret's message. "That smile is worth every battle, isn't it?" I replied, my heart full. "Every single one." Today, almost 2 years after that fateful night when I installed the camera in my daughter's room, our lives have taken a completely different path. We live in a small but comfortable house with a yard where Lily can play, and where we planted a small flower garden together. I have a stable job as a nurse supervisor at the hospital. Day shifts only. I'm always home every evening. Lily is 10 years old now. The nightmares that were once frequent are now rare. She continues therapy, but we've reduced it to once a week. Dr. Chan says her progress is remarkable, although some emotional scars will probably stay with her for a long time. She has learned to deal with those wounds, to understand that what happened wasn't her fault, and to recognize warning signs and ask for help when needed. At school, my daughter is once again an engaged student. She has made new friends and recently joined the art club. Seeing the joy on her face when she shows me her paintings, hearing her carefree laugh while playing with her friends, those are the moments that show me our fight was worth it. As for Robert, the justice system took its course. After many hearings and psychological evaluations, he was found guilty of child abuse and mistreatment. He was sentenced to community service and mandatory psychiatric treatment, in addition to the definitive loss of Lily's custody. He still tries from time to time to regain the right to see his daughter, always claiming he is healed and remorseful. The judge wisely maintains the decision that any contact must be pre-approved by Lily and her therapeutic team. To this day, my daughter has shown no interest in seeing her father again. When the subject comes up, she becomes quiet, thoughtful, and usually changes the topic. Dr. Chen explained that this is normal and healthy. She is protecting herself, setting boundaries, something that was denied to her for so long. Perhaps one day, when she is older and emotionally prepared, she will decide to resume some form of contact. But that will be her decision when and if she is ready. What struck me most throughout this journey was realizing how domestic violence against children can happen silently, right under our noses. Robert maintained a perfect image of a dedicated father in everyone's eyes, neighbors, family, teachers. No one would ever suspect what he did when the doors closed. No one except his terrified daughter, who had no voice or power to defend herself. I learned to always be alert to the signs. Lily's behavioral changes weren't just a phase or growth, as Robert tried to convince me. They were silent cries for help that I unfortunately was slow to hear. Today, I am much more observant, not just with my daughter but with other children around me. I've identified suspicious situations a few times and haven't hesitated to contact the proper authorities. It's better to investigate and find out everything is fine than to ignore it and allow another child to continue suffering. At home, we built a relationship based on absolute trust. Lily knows she can tell me anything without fear of judgment or punishment. We have our rules and boundaries, of course, but they are always discussed with respect and affection. Discipline is taught through conversations, logical consequences, and example. Never, ever through physical or psychological violence. One of the things I am most proud of is seeing how Lily has become an empathetic and protective child. At school, she often defends classmates who are being bullied or who seem vulnerable. "Everyone deserves to feel safe, Mama," she told me once with wisdom beyond her years. Recently, I was invited to give testimony at a support group for single parents who have gone through domestic violence situations. I shared our story, highlighting the importance of being alert to the signs, of believing children when they try to communicate that something is wrong, and of acting quickly when there is suspicion of abuse. After my talk, a woman approached me crying. She had just discovered that her husband was abusing their son during the day while she worked. I installed cameras after noticing strange behavior in the child, just like you did. Your testimony gave me the courage to move forward with the process, she said, squeezing my hand. Knowing that it's possible to rebuild your life, that children can recover, that gave me hope. And that is what I carry with me every day, hope. Hope that Lily continues her path of healing, that she grows up strong and confident despite the adversities she faced so early in life. Hope that our story can help other families identify and interrupt cycles of violence. Hope that as a society we can better protect our children. That camera I installed in my daughter's room not only documented the horror she was living through, it saved her life. It allowed me to see the dark truth hidden in my own home and gave me the necessary tools to protect her. It was a desperate gesture that turned into salvation. Today, when I see Lily playing carelessly in the yard, running after butterflies with our cat, a stray we adopted last year, I see a child who is finally living the childhood she deserves. The eyes that once carried so much fear now shine with joy and curiosity. The deep dark circles have given way to rosy cheeks. The scared silence has transformed into laughter and animated conversations about her school days, her friends, her dreams. Sometimes when we're watching TV together or reading a bedtime story, she snuggles into my arms in a way that reminds me how far we've come. In those moments, I silently give thanks for having followed my instincts that night, for not having ignored the signs, for having the courage to face the truth, no matter how painful. The journey wasn't easy. There were days of despair, doubt, and guilt. There were nights when I wondered if we were making progress, if we would ever completely overcome the trauma. But every small step forward, a genuine smile, a night without nightmares, a spontaneous hug, showed me we were on the right path. To the mamas and grandmas watching me, I leave you with a piece of advice born from pain and experience. Trust your instincts. If something seems wrong with your child, it probably is. Children change their behavior for various reasons, but drastic changes, especially those involving fear, withdrawal, and physical signs like dark circles or bruises, should never be ignored. Talk to your children. Be present. Observe. Listen not only to what they say but also to what they don't say, what they express through behavior, drawings, and play. And remember, violence against children has no justification. It is not discipline. It is not education. It is not for their own good. It is pure and simple abuse. And as a society, we have a duty to protect the most vulnerable, to give a voice to those who often cannot or fail to speak for themselves. Our story had a happy ending. Despite all the adversities, Lily is safe. She is healing. And she is growing up surrounded by love and respect. Not all stories end this way. Some children spend years, decades, an entire lifetime suffering abuse because no one intervenes, no one notices, no one believes. Don't let that happen. Be vigilant. Be the voice. Be the protection that every child deserves. If this story touched your heart, give it a like so that this grandma can feel happy. Subscribe to Grandma's Stories right now so you don't miss the next tales I will tell with all my heart. And tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is there right now. If you know of a similar case to ours, or if you've had to make a difficult decision to protect a child, share your experience. It makes this grandma very happy to know which city you're watching from and at what time of day you're keeping me company, and also to be able to exchange experiences that can help other families. A big hug the size of my heart. Dear ones, did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like this story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.